Many of my patients come to me frustrated. They've tried painkillers, ointments, even physical therapy, and yet their joints still ache. Often, the first thing they expect from me is another prescription. But sometimes, instead of handing them medication, I hand them a list of groceries. You see, what you eat can have as much impact on inflammation as any pill in my cabinet. Arthritis, whether osteoarthritis or the autoimmune type, thrives in an environment of chronic inflammation, and food can either fuel that fire or help put it out. Over the years, I've seen people overlook the simple truth that every meal is a choice between calming your body or agitating it. This isn't about going on a harsh diet or cutting out everything you enjoy. It's about shifting the balance toward foods that help your body heal. I remember a woman named Patricia, 62 years old, who came to me with severe knee pain. She was scheduled for joint injections, but after we adjusted her diet to include certain anti-inflammatory foods, her pain levels dropped by nearly half in just 2 months. She still needed treatment, but her recovery was faster and her daily life became easier. One of the most powerful categories of anti-inflammatory foods is fatty fish: salmon, mackerel, sardines, trout. These are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which are like nature's built-in joint soothers. Omega-3s reduce the production of molecules and substances linked to inflammation, such as cytokines. For patients who don't like fish, I often suggest plant-based sources like chia seeds, flax seeds, and walnuts. I've had men in their 70s who'd never eaten anything more exotic than tuna fish sandwiches become avid salmon fans after feeling the difference in their morning stiffness. Colorful vegetables are another weapon against arthritis pain. I'm not talking about iceberg lettuce or pale cucumbers, but deep greens, bright oranges, and rich reds. Spinach, kale, sweet potatoes, bell peppers. These vegetables are packed with antioxidants like vitamin C and beta-carotene, which protect your joints from oxidative stress, another process that can make arthritis worse. I often tell my patients to eat the rainbow, not because it sounds nice, but because the more variety you have in color, the broader the range of protective compounds you're giving your joints. And here's something many people forget. Herbs and spices aren't just for flavor. Turmeric, with its active compound curcumin, has shown in multiple studies to significantly reduce joint inflammation. Ginger also works similarly, with the added benefit of aiding digestion. I once had a patient with rheumatoid arthritis who started adding a teaspoon of turmeric and a bit of black pepper to her soups each evening. She told me that within a month, her morning hand stiffness, which used to last over an hour, was down to just 10 minutes. Even small changes can matter. Swapping your regular cooking oil for extra virgin olive oil, replacing sugary snacks with berries, or starting your day with a green smoothie can gradually shift your body toward a less inflammatory state. And while you might not notice the effect overnight, the cumulative results can be remarkable. When your body has less inflammation to deal with, your joints can move more freely, and you have more energy for the activities you love. Food won't replace all arthritis treatments, and I'm not here to tell you to throw away your medications, but it can be a powerful ally, one that works quietly with you every single day. I always encourage my patients to see diet as part of their treatment plan, not an optional extra, because when you combine medical care with smart eating habits, the results can be life-changing. When we talk about using food to fight arthritis, it's just as important to discuss what to limit, or even avoid, as it is to highlight what to include. If you imagine your joints as a campfire, the anti-inflammatory foods we discussed earlier are like pouring cool water over the flames. The wrong foods, on the other hand, are like throwing gasoline into the fire. You might not see the flare-up immediately, but over time, the damage accumulates. I've seen patients who made excellent choices at lunch only to undo it all at dinner without realizing it. One of the most common culprits I see is sugar. Not just the sugar in cakes and candies, but the hidden sugars in sauces, breads, cereals, and even so-called healthy granola bars. High sugar intake spikes insulin levels, which in turn promotes inflammation throughout the body, including your joints. I remember a man named George, 58, who came to me complaining that his knee pain was always worst in the evenings. When we looked at his food log, we noticed he was drinking sweetened iced tea all afternoon. He thought it was harmless compared to soda. Within a few weeks of switching to unsweetened tea and water, his evening pain was noticeably reduced. Processed foods are another major trigger. Chips, frozen meals, fast food. These are often loaded with trans fats, refined carbohydrates, and additives that promote inflammation. Trans fats, in particular, are something I urge my patients to cut out entirely. They're often labeled as partially hydrogenated oils on ingredient lists, and they not only increase inflammation, but also raise your risk of heart disease. One patient, Maria, struggled with hip pain for years. She didn't think much about her diet because she wasn't overweight. But after cutting out her daily habit of store-bought pastries and switching to whole grain bread with nut butter, her mobility improved, and she started sleeping better. Excessive red meat consumption can also contribute to joint inflammation, especially when it's processed, like bacon, sausages, and deli meats. These contain high levels of saturated fat and advanced glycation end products, AGEs, which can trigger inflammatory responses. I'm not saying everyone needs to become vegetarian, but replacing some servings of red meat with plant-based proteins, fish, or poultry can make a real difference. I've had patients who simply swapped 2 dinners a week from beef to salmon and noticed reduced swelling in their fingers. Then there's alcohol. While an occasional glass of wine might not be harmful for most, frequent drinking can both dehydrate your joints and disrupt the body's natural healing processes during sleep. In patients with gout, alcohol, especially beer, can trigger painful flare-ups almost overnight. I once treated a gentleman who loved his weekend beers but hated his Monday morning foot pain. Cutting down to just one drink on special occasions reduced his gout attacks by more than half. One food category that surprises many people is refined vegetable oils: corn, soybean, sunflower. They're high in omega-6 fatty acids, which in excess can promote inflammation. The body needs a balance between omega-3s and omega-6s, but in modern diets, the ratio is often heavily skewed toward omega-6. That's why I recommend cooking with olive oil or avocado oil instead and adding more omega-3 sources to help restore that balance. Salt is another factor worth mentioning. While sodium itself isn't inherently bad, excessive salt can cause water retention, which increases swelling in inflamed joints. Many processed foods and restaurant meals contain far more salt than you realize. For patients with both arthritis and high blood pressure, reducing sodium can ease joint discomfort and improve cardiovascular health at the same time. I encourage my patients to think about their diet as a long-term investment in joint health. You don't need to eliminate every trigger food at once. In fact, trying to overhaul everything overnight often leads to frustration and relapse. Instead, I suggest making 1 or 2 small changes each week. For example, replace your afternoon cookie with a handful of berries, or switch your cooking oil from vegetable to olive oil. These steps might seem small, but over time, they accumulate into measurable changes in inflammation and pain levels. The beauty of focusing on what to avoid is that it creates space for healthier choices to take root. By cutting out the foods that silently harm your joints, you allow the protective foods to do their job more effectively. I've seen patients who tried every cream, supplement, and therapy available, only to find their biggest breakthrough came from something as simple as changing what was on their plate. It's not magic, it's biology. When you remove the constant triggers, your body finally has the breathing room it needs to repair and restore. Once we've identified the foods that can help your joints and those that can harm them, the next step is learning how to combine the right foods so they work together. Eating an anti-inflammatory food here and there is a good start, but the real power comes when your daily meals are structured to keep inflammation consistently low. Think of it like a symphony. Each instrument on its own is pleasant, but when played together in harmony, the effect is much stronger. One of the simplest combinations I recommend to my patients is pairing healthy fats with antioxidant-rich vegetables. For example, adding a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil to a salad of spinach, red bell peppers, and cherry tomatoes not only enhances the flavor, but also helps your body absorb fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. These vitamins play a role in bone and joint health, supporting cartilage and reducing oxidative stress. I recall a patient named Linda who hated vegetables until we started making them richer and tastier with a bit of olive oil and fresh herbs. She not only began enjoying her meals, but also reported less morning stiffness after a few weeks. Protein is another essential part of the anti-inflammatory puzzle. Lean proteins such as fish, skinless poultry, lentils, or beans help maintain muscle mass, which in turn supports your joints and reduces stress on them. For example, pairing salmon with a side of steamed broccoli and quinoa gives you omega-3 fats, antioxidants, and complete protein in one meal. This combination not only fuels your body, but also keeps blood sugar steady. Another factor in controlling inflammation. I've often seen that when patients get enough protein from healthy sources, they feel more energized and less achy during the day. Another pairing I recommend is combining turmeric with black pepper. On its own, turmeric's active compound curcumin has limited absorption in the body. But when combined with piperine, a compound found in black pepper, absorption can increase by up to 2,000%. That's why I tell my patients to add a pinch of black pepper to any dish containing turmeric, whether it's in soups, roasted vegetables, or even golden milk. One gentleman in his 60s started this habit and told me he not only noticed less knee pain, but also felt his digestion improve. Whole grains are also part of the picture, especially when paired with vegetables and legumes. Brown rice with lentils, whole wheat pasta with sautéed vegetables, or barley soup with carrots and celery are examples of meals that provide fiber, vitamins, and minerals without the inflammatory effects of refined carbohydrates. These combinations also help keep you full, making it easier to maintain a healthy weight, a crucial factor in protecting your joints. For snacks, I suggest combining nuts or seeds with fruit. Walnuts with blueberries, almonds with apple slices, or pumpkin seeds with orange wedges create a nutrient-dense snack that's satisfying and supports joint health. The healthy fats in nuts help your body make the most of the antioxidants in fruit, while the natural sweetness satisfies cravings without the inflammation spike caused by refined sugar. It's also worth mentioning hydration in this context. Water might not seem like a food, but it's the medium through which all these nutrients travel in your body. Pairing hydrating foods like cucumbers, watermelon, and oranges with your meals can boost your overall water intake and help keep the synovial fluid in your joints at the right consistency. Without proper hydration, even the most nutrient-rich diet won't be as effective in protecting your joints. When you start to think of your meals as opportunities to combine nutrients in strategic ways, you can transform the way you eat without feeling restricted. I often tell my patients, don't just eat foods, build meals that work for you. This approach not only keeps inflammation low throughout the day, but also makes healthy eating something you look forward to instead of a chore. The key is consistency. Each balanced meal builds on the last, creating a long-term environment in your body that's less inviting to arthritis pain. One of the biggest challenges my patients face is turning nutrition advice into daily habits. They understand which foods are good for them, they know what to avoid, but when it comes to putting it all together on a plate, they freeze. That's why I like to give clear, realistic examples of what an anti-inflammatory day of eating can look like. This way, instead of guessing, you have a roadmap, and you can adjust it to your tastes and lifestyle. Let's start with breakfast. I often recommend something light but nutrient-dense, especially for people with arthritis. For example, a bowl of warm oatmeal made with unsweetened almond milk, topped with blueberries, walnuts, and a sprinkle of cinnamon. This combination gives you fiber to stabilize blood sugar, omega-3 fats from the walnuts to reduce inflammation, and antioxidants from the berries to protect your joints from oxidative damage. If you prefer something savory, try scrambled eggs cooked in olive oil with spinach and tomatoes, served with a slice of whole grain toast. For patients who don't have much appetite in the morning, a green smoothie with kale, banana, chia seeds, and ginger can be both refreshing and gentle on the stomach. Mid-morning snacks are optional, but for those who need them, I recommend keeping it simple. A small handful of almonds and an apple, or some carrot sticks with hummus, can keep you energized without triggering inflammation. One of my patients, Susan, replaced her mid-morning pastry with apple slices and almond butter, and she told me not only did her afternoon knee pain improve, but she also had fewer sugar crashes. Lunch is an opportunity to get a large serving of vegetables and lean protein. A salad with mixed greens, grilled salmon, avocado, cherry tomatoes, and a lemon olive oil dressing is one of my personal favorites. For something warm, a lentil and vegetable soup served with a side of whole grain bread can be deeply satisfying and anti-inflammatory at the same time. For those who enjoy a bit more variety, I suggest a grain bowl. Quinoa topped with roasted sweet potatoes, sautéed kale, chickpeas, and tahini sauce. This provides a balance of protein, complex carbs, and healthy fats. Afternoon snacks should be chosen carefully because this is the time when many people crave processed sweets or salty snacks. A small bowl of berries with a spoonful of Greek yogurt or celery sticks with almond butter can be both satisfying and supportive of joint health. I remind patients that snacks are not fillers. They're small opportunities to feed your joints what they need. Dinner is where many people either strengthen their anti-inflammatory routine or undo all the progress they've made during the day. I advise my patients to keep dinners balanced but not too heavy. One simple example is baked trout with a side of steamed broccoli and roasted carrots, all drizzled with olive oil and sprinkled with turmeric and black pepper. Another is grilled chicken breast with quinoa and a big portion of sautéed spinach. If you're vegetarian, a hearty chickpea and vegetable curry with brown rice can be a perfect option. The idea is to keep the focus on vegetables, lean proteins, and healthy fats while limiting refined carbs and added sugars. Before bed, I sometimes recommend a small, joint-friendly nightcap. Not alcohol, but something like warm golden milk made with turmeric, almond milk, cinnamon, and a pinch of black pepper. This not only provides anti-inflammatory benefits, but also helps signal to your body that it's time to wind down for sleep. Many patients tell me this becomes their favorite part of the day, like a small act of self-care before bed. The beauty of this kind of meal planning is that it doesn't require you to count calories or obsess over every bite. Instead, you're focusing on quality, variety, and balance. Over time, your palate changes. Processed foods start to taste too sweet or too salty, and fresh foods become more appealing. I've seen this transformation countless times, and it's one of the most encouraging parts of my work. I always remind my patients, don't think of this as a temporary diet. Think of it as a lifestyle, one that not only reduces arthritis pain but also supports your heart, your brain, your digestion, and your overall energy. Once you get into the rhythm, eating this way stops feeling like an effort and starts feeling like the natural choice. Over the years, I've noticed something interesting. Many people start an anti-inflammatory eating plan with great enthusiasm, only to become discouraged after a few weeks. They tell me, "Doctor, I've been eating healthy, but my joints still hurt," or "I don't feel any different." When we look closely at their habits, I almost always find the same patterns. Small but significant mistakes that can completely undermine their progress. Understanding these pitfalls is essential if you want to see real results. The first mistake is expecting instant relief. Food works with your body's natural healing processes, and that takes time. Unlike a painkiller, which may numb discomfort within an hour, dietary changes work gradually, lowering inflammation levels day by day. I remind patients that it often takes at least 4 to 6 weeks before you notice a significant improvement. This doesn't mean nothing is happening in those first weeks. It's just that the changes are happening inside, quietly, before you start feeling them on the outside. Another common problem is hidden inflammatory ingredients. A patient might proudly tell me they've cut out all fast food, but when we review their shopping list, I see salad dressings with added sugar, flavored yogurts full of artificial sweeteners, or healthy snack bars loaded with processed oils. These hidden ingredients can keep inflammation high, even if the rest of your diet is excellent. That's why I always recommend reading labels carefully. And if a product has more than 5 ingredients you can't easily recognize, it's usually best to avoid it. Portion sizes are another area where people unintentionally sabotage their progress. Even anti-inflammatory foods can contribute to weight gain if eaten in excess, and extra weight puts more stress on your joints. I once had a patient who started eating large handfuls of walnuts every evening because she heard they were good for arthritis. While walnuts are excellent for joint health, her portions were so big that she gained several pounds in just 2 months, which worsened her knee pain. Moderation is key, even with the healthiest foods. Some people also make the mistake of focusing on just one superfood and expecting it to solve everything. Turmeric, salmon, blueberries, these are all fantastic, but no single food can balance your entire diet. The real benefit comes from variety and synergy between different nutrients. Your joints need a mix of antioxidants, healthy fats, lean proteins, and vitamins from multiple sources. Eating salmon 3 times a week is great, but if the rest of your meals are processed and high in sugar, you won't get the results you're hoping for. Skipping meals is another issue, especially among those trying to lose weight. When you go too long without eating, your blood sugar can drop, which triggers stress hormones in the body. This stress response can actually increase inflammation. A better approach is to eat balanced meals at regular intervals so your body gets a steady supply of nutrients without large spikes or drops in energy. I've also seen people neglect hydration, thinking it's not important for arthritis. In reality, dehydration can make joint pain worse because it affects the lubrication between bones. Drinking water throughout the day, along with eating water-rich foods like cucumbers and oranges, helps maintain the fluid in your joints, allowing them to move smoothly. I sometimes compare it to an engine. Without enough oil, the parts grind against each other, causing damage over time. Finally, there's the mental side of this journey. Some patients approach dietary changes as a short-term challenge rather than a long-term lifestyle shift. They count down the days until they can go back to their old eating habits, which almost always brings their symptoms back. I encourage my patients to view these changes as permanent, not in a restrictive way, but in a way that becomes second nature. When healthy choices are part of your identity, not just a temporary project, they become much easier to maintain. Avoiding these common mistakes can dramatically improve your results. The key is patience, awareness, and consistency. By giving your body time to respond, checking labels for hidden ingredients, managing portions, eating a variety of anti-inflammatory foods, staying hydrated, and thinking long-term, you create the best possible environment for your joints to heal and thrive. And when you start to feel the difference, when climbing stairs doesn't hurt, when you can enjoy a walk without stiffness, you'll know it's worth every bit of effort.